What's the story, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Alright, let's be honest for a second. If you pitched a fantasy show today where the main character is just a good guy, you'd probably get laughed out of the room. He's not tortured, not secretly evil, not carrying some edgy trauma checklist. He's just a decent human being trying to do the right thing. Apparently, that's controversial now, and yet somehow, against all odds, a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms went ahead and did exactly that. And it works. Like, really works. To the point where I'm sitting here wondering how the hell this even got made without someone in the boardroom trying to fix it.
Put a ticket in and make her name it gay!
Because this show does something pretty radical by modern standards. It doesn't try to be clever all the time. It doesn't feel the need to constantly undermine itself or wink at the audience like it's embarrassed to exist. It just tells a story. A straightforward, character-driven story. And funnily enough, that's exactly why it's landing so well. At the centre of it all, you've got a hedge knight, Sir Dunk the Tall. Big lad, not exactly a genius, not particularly important, and definitely not someone whose destiny has been circled in a red marker. He's just a guy who ends up on his own after his mentor dies and basically goes, right, I guess I'm a knight now. And according to Game of Thrones, apparently he does a pretty good job of it.
Sir Duncan the Tall. 4 pages for Sir Duncan. He must have been quite a man.
So they say.
No ceremony, no epic music, just vibes and questionable decision making. And the thing is, you buy into him immediately. He's awkward, a bit out of his depth, and clearly figuring things out as he goes. But he's got a moral compass that actually points somewhere. He tries to help people. He steps in when he shouldn't. He makes things harder for himself because he refuses to be a dick. Which, in Westeros, is basically the fastest way to get yourself killed. So, naturally, you want him to win. His big plan, if you can even call it that, is to enter a tournament and maybe scrape together enough reputation to build a life. It's not exactly save the world stuff. It's small, personal, grounded. And that's kind of the magic of it. Because instead of jumping straight into a massive political drama or world-ending stakes, the show keeps things simple. You're following one guy, one goal, and watching how badly it can all go wrong. And trust me, it goes wrong. Along the way, he ends up travelling with this kid who calls himself Egg, which sounds like a nickname you'd get bullied in school for, but somehow it works. Possibly because he looks like one. And the two of them together is where the show really finds its groove. Dunk's all size and sincerity, basically winging it through life, while Egg's smaller, sharper, and clearly not telling the full story about who he is. There's this constant push and pull between them that even makes the quieter scenes worth watching. And that's another thing. This show actually lets scenes breathe. It's not sprinting from one big moment to the next like it's terrified you'll get bored. It slows down, lets characters talk, and lets you sit in the world for a bit. And weirdly enough, that's more engaging than half the overproduced shite we usually get. Eventually, Dunk gets his shot at the tournament. But because this is still Westeros, and Westeros loves ruining people's lives, things spiral quickly. He ends up crossing paths with the wrong kind of nobles. He stands up for someone he probably should have ignored if he valued his life. And suddenly, he's in way over his head. What started as a simple attempt to prove himself turns into something a lot more dangerous. And that's where the tension kicks in. Now here's the interesting part. Nobody really expected this show to hit the way it has. After the way Game of Thrones wrapped up, a lot of people were just done. Checked out. And while House of the Dragon had its moments, it wasn't exactly what you'd call a fun watch. More like a slow, grim march through a bunch of miserable people doing miserable things. So when this was announced, the reaction was basically a shrug. And then it came out and people started paying attention. Because instead of doubling down on all the stuff that's been dragging modern fantasy down, constant cynicism, everyone being morally bankrupt, stories that feel like they hate their own characters, this show just goes in the opposite direction. It gives you someone to root for, like properly root for. Not in an ironic way, not in a, well, at least he's not awful kind of way. You actually want Dunk to succeed because he's trying to be better than the world he's in. And honestly, that shouldn't feel like a novelty, but here we are. There's also something refreshing about the scale of it. We're not dealing with kings deciding the fate of continents every 5 minutes. We're in the background of that world. Small towns, local tournaments, and people just getting by. It makes everything feel more grounded, more real. And because the story isn't juggling 50 different characters and plot lines, it actually has time to build relationships. You get to know these people. You understand how they tick. And when something goes wrong, it actually means something. It's simple storytelling, but done properly, which apparently is harder than it looks these days. And I think that's why this show is connecting with people. Not because it's flashy or groundbreaking, but because it's honest about what it is. It doesn't try to be bigger than it needs to be. It just focuses on doing the basics well. Strong characters, clear motivations, and a world that feels lived in. That's it. No gimmicks, no overcomplicated nonsense, and no desperate attempts to chase trends. Just a good story. And maybe, just maybe, that's what people have been missing. Because let's face it, a lot of modern stuff has been obsessed with tearing down the idea of heroes, replacing them with characters who are either completely broken or just outright unlikable. Everything's dark, everything's cynical, and after a while, it just gets exhausting. This, on the other hand, feels like a bit of a reset. It reminds you why people fell in love with fantasy in the first place. The sense of adventure, the idea that even someone with nothing can become something. And doing the right thing actually matters. Mad concept, I know. So yeah, whether this is a one-off fluke or the start of something shifting behind the scenes, I don't know. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy the fact that against all odds, we've got a fantasy show that actually remembers how to be, well, fun. And honestly, that's more than enough. So if you've been watching it, let me know what you think of it so far and who's been your favourite character. And as always, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments if there's any other movies, TV shows or games you would like to see me cover. And well, that's all I've got to say about that. Good night.